Hi, welcome to Expressions. I'm Julie Robbins. If you like fly fishing, then you'll want to catch this episode of Expressions because we're going to introduce you to Bill Deckel of Claremore, Oklahoma, who makes bamboo fly rods. In fact, he's one of a few dozen in the world that makes these. So now that we have you lured in, stay tuned for a great show of Expressions. So is this actually a bamboo cane, I guess, maybe?
This is Arundinaria amabilis. And we'll get the spiral wrap in the other direction now and see the feet of these snake eyes right through the thread when it's varnished.
It's just beautiful detailed. Okay, back. And here we go.
Needs a little work, but
Needs a lot of work. What are you talking about?
a little practice, you'll have it.
Our guest today is Bill Deckel. Bill, thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you for coming.
And you are the big bamboo fly rod maker.
I've heard that.
How did you get involved in that? Because that's not common.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and recently I had a chance to go back for a couple of years and just immerse myself in fly fishing, and I've been fly fishing now for about 38 years.
Wow.
And the next logical extension is to tie your own flies, and then finally you wind up doing this sort of thing.
And before we get into the actual making of it, what is the difference between the bamboo and I guess maybe a graphite type?
Yeah, their rods have been made historically from any flexible material that you can imagine. Split bamboo rods had their heyday in the 30s and 40s. And with the Truman embargo on China and the use of fiberglass in the 50s, that pretty much killed the bamboo fly rod industry. But there's still a handful of people making custom-made fly rods now.
And you do this not just as a hobby, but as a business also. You
Oh,
sell
sure.
these, right?
Yeah, I'll make a custom-made rod for someone.
That is wonderful. And about how much do the rods run? Do you know?
Between 800 and 900, depending on the custom work that the customer wants. This is a two-piece, two-tip, matched tip trout rod.
It's beautiful.
And it would take a reel something like this. And that would be adequate for trout fishing.
Oh, they're so light. That's really nice.
You try to keep the weight down. As a matter of fact, bamboo has a modulus of elasticity somewhere between fiberglass and graphite. It's better than fiberglass, but not as good as graphite.
Now let's get started in this. I want to know,
Okay.
where do you start making this?
Well, it all starts here. We'll need to select.
So is this actually a bamboo cane, I guess, maybe?
This is Arundinaria amabilis. It's Tonkin cane, comes from southern China.
Oh, you do get this from China then?
Yes, and there's one importer. There's, by consensus, it's the best material for making split cane fly rods. We're going to try to make at least one two-piece, two-tip fly rod out of this.
Oh, right. We're going to be filing and sawing, I guess, and cutting.
First thing
right?
we want to do is try to knock down some of these ridges on the nodes.
Okay.
The nodes are what make bamboo bamboo, but it gives rod makers a nightmare. You can see some of the enamel or skin is coming off, and I'm getting down into the power fibers here. The power fibers lie just under the skin.
Is that what you want to do? You do want to get down in there?
I don't want to destroy any because that's what gives the rod its strength.
Bill, how long does the filing process take?
Depends on how many nodes there are on a 12-foot log, usually just 20 minutes to a half an hour.
Okay. And how about overall for one of the rods?
To make a rod, depending on the custom options, could take anywhere from 30 to 50 hours of actual labor. But of course, glue drying time and varnish curing time extends that to about 3 or 4 months to do a good job. In order to save some time, I've already filed this half of the log.
Okay.
And we're ready now to go ahead and cut this in half and start splitting the rod sections out. This will be the butt section of the rod. These will be the tips. The reason for that is the power fibers just under the skin are thicker down here. Next step is to start splitting. And with a flexible ruler, I want to cut this. I want to split it.
Being a math teacher, you have that ruler on hand, don't you?
Have to have it. I don't want to waste any cane, so measuring twice and splitting once always works. And if it's good dry cane, it'll split easily.
Yeah, looky there. It's good cane, isn't it?
Oh, it is. This is a good piece. This has been drying for about 4 years. Sometimes you have to coax it through the nose because I have to knock these woody, tough diaphragms out of here to continue splitting. Otherwise, the splits may go.
Oh, goodness. How do you do that?
Well, this is an outside operation.
Okay, Bill, what is the reason for going outside and doing this?
Well, number one, it makes a mess.
Okay.
And number two, I need something good and sturdy
Like a
to
tree.
bang those nodes out with.
Okay.
And a tree works. And they go pretty easy, but they are tough. And just flush it up a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect now. We're way too early in the game for that. All right. To start with, I'm going to split in half, and then I'm going to split in half, and then I'm going to split in half. I'll do the same thing to the other piece. I just need to mark it.
Until you have 16, right?
This one will give me 8, and I'll get the other 8 from the other half. Okay, again, just start that. One tap ought to do it. And then
Wow, look at all this.
that's the result of our splitting effort for one log. Hopefully there's enough there to make 2 fly rods out of it.
And the colored ends are for what purpose?
Yeah, that's to keep track of which strips came from the butt section and are intended for the butt section of the rod, and the red are for the tips. Now, what I'm going to try to do with these strips is straighten them
Okay.
in preparation for beveling.
And you're going to do that with heat?
Right, just using this heat gun. And in addition to getting the bends out, I'm going to press these nodes flat.
Okay, with your fingers? How do you do
No,
that?
I'm going to use a vise with wooden
Okay.
jaws. But first thing we need to do, for example, let's take this sweep out of this section right here.
All right.
I've got that on high setting, and it takes a little while. As a matter of fact, this heat straightening operation could take days working slowly.
Because you have to do this for each one?
Strip that goes into the rod.
Isn't there a faster process of doing it?
There is, and a lot of production houses in the 30s and 40s just sawed straight strips out of the log. What happens there is, as you saw across a grain that's curved, there's an opportunity for a weakened piece of wood. This ensures the strength is maintained.
Okay.
In addition, what I'm going to do, like I said, is press the nodes, and for there I need to localize the heat
Right on.
right on that node. Now when that gets real pliable, I'm going to put that right in this vise and just press it like that and let it cool.
Okay, Bill, is this a beveling machine? Is that what you would call it?
It is. It's just
Okay.
a cutter mounted to a motor shaft.
Okay.
What it does for us, it'll take our split strips that we've chosen for the rod and create a triangular cross section by cutting one edge, turning it, cutting the next edge until we get a triangular cross section
Okay.
that'll lie in the planing form to allow us to, then to plane the taper in it. The first thing we have to do is cut the triangle. And each time I'll raise the bed, a half a turn or so, and take off a little bit more. And that's what we need to do to all the strips in the rod. And you can see how we've made a triangular cross section out of the strip. And I'll need 6 of these per rod section.
Well, Bill, I see we have all the triangular ends here now.
Right, we've beveled enough for a 2-piece, 2-tip fly rod. And what I've done is taken a binding machine that we'll see later in the gluing operation and bound the 6 triangles together.
And now what happens?
Well, the reason we bind them together is try to keep them straight so we can heat treat them.
Okay.
Drives off moisture and makes this section just a little bit stiffer. Right now we'll just put these light colored sticks in here at 350.
For how long?
25 minutes.
Okay. Okay, Bill, we just cooked these, right?
Right.
Okay.
Took the string off.
Okay, and now they're nice and straight?
They're straight, and we're ready to start planing the bevel, planing the taper
Okay.
into each section.
Now tell me, what is a taper?
The taper is a gradual decrease from the butt section to the tip. Planing form is nothing more than 2 3/4 by 3/4 inch cold rolled steel.
But they're very important, right?
They're critical. This is what makes the rod.
Okay.
There's a set of screws for each 5-inch station, push screw and a pull screw. And in order to set the depth, I'll use this depth gauge, a couple of hex wrenches, and I can push or pull these steel sections so the depth is carefully controlled and locked in. So it goes from deep on this end to shallow on that end. And I can plane then and get the taper into the rod.
You can make the depth exactly what you want it to be, right?
2 tools that we use to get the taper into each strip are a simple block plane.
Okay.
That's used on the pith side of the triangles.
Would that mean the more coarse side? Is that what you're saying?
That's the inside of the bamboo.
Okay.
Now the skin side, beneath which lies the power fibers, I have to be very careful. I don't dare plane that. So we use a forward leaning blade on a scraper to scrape that off. As a matter of fact, we'll start there.
So the scraper's for the skin then?
Yeah, I don't want to dig into the power fibers. I can't take a chance with cutting action.
Okay.
And we'll just start scraping the enamel off until we get a flush surface that'll lie flat either against that edge or against that edge and plane nothing but the pith side. Now to show you how important those power fibers are and how close they are, here's a good cross section of a log.
Oh, yeah.
The skin is only a few thousandths. Right beneath that skin, this dark layer, are the densely packed power fibers. Those are critical to save to give the rod strength. The white material below it is pith, waste. We don't need it.
So as long as we save the power fibers, we're okay?
Right. And that's taking a real good shaving off there. I don't want to overdo it, but I need to get the skin off and I need to smooth out the parts. Now we're ready to go for dimension.
Okay.
For that we'll use a block plane. We'll line this up.
You have all your measurements.
They're all
Take
set.
to the side, okay.
And we'll just walk down, and the first cut probably won't take much off until it starts to flatten it out. Now it's starting to bite in a little bit, as I expected it to.
When it bites in, does it get a little bit tougher to push?
No, but it tells me that I'm taking a nice thin shaving, a continuous shaving, meaning that surface is flat. And that's what I really need, a good, almost a perfect triangle. Well, that's it. We're down to dimension now on all the strips. And now we're ready to glue the 6 triangular sticks together to make the butt section of a fishing rod.
Okay, and this step is very important, right?
Got to go right.
Okay.
Just open up the masking tape there. Now, the tape's still holding the sections relative to each other.
It's already looking really pretty today.
Starting to look like a fishing rod. Okay, I'm ready to paint the glue on. Here we go. I need to coat this surface.
Okay.
And I need to get every surface area on all 6 strips. Okay.
You don't worry about picking it up without any gloves or anything?
No. I don't think I could handle it right with gloves. Okay, here we go. Make a wrap there, one direction. Put a couple of half hitches in. Make another wrap. Hope for the best. All right, that seems to be going pretty good. I've got the sticks under the right tension with the counterweight. Okay, that one's bound up. Now I'm going to put it back through.
Okay.
And we'll get the spiral wrap in the other direction now to take out any potential twists from the first wrap.
Okay. Okay, Bill, we're finished with this?
Yep, we've got...
And this is the messiest part, right?
It is.
Everything's sticking to you?
I'll need to go in and wash my hands, but right now, more important than that, is making sure that this section is fairly straight, and that is reasonable. That's a fairly straight section right there. Now, it's a matter of letting the glue cure,
Okay.
and we have a butt section for a fly rod.
All right.
So we'll just hang it up,
Let it dry.
let it dry.
Okay, Bill, now this is a different size. This is a tip, right?
Right, I went ahead and glued the tips up previously. We finished the rod gluing with that butt section, but this has been glued for a while. The glue is cured. Now I need to take the string off.
Okay, how do you do that?
Well, what I don't want to do is just grab the end and pull, because it could possibly pull some of the material away. So we need to sand it off.
Oh.
And I have to be careful keeping the flat part of my sanding block on the flat part of the rod section. So I have 6 flats to do down the length of the rod.
Okay.
So we'll just get started. Now the heaviest grip, I'm just going to knock off the most of the string. And we'll follow it up with finer and finer grit. And watching the light refraction, we just want to get the glue off the wood. We don't want to go into the wood at all.
All right, Bill, I'm assuming this laying right next to you, this is the finished product of this, right?
That's the other tip, with the string sanded off. Ready to varnish.
Yeah, it's smooth.
Yeah, and I went to progressively finer and finer grits. A couple of things I did in addition to sand the string off this is fit the end with a ferrule.
Okay, and a ferrule is?
It's a nickel silver connector so I can put the fishing rod together.
Oh, okay.
And I use Japanese silk, and I wrapped a section of green and a little trim wrap of orange. Now you may say, that doesn't look anything like that color. Well, what happens when the varnish hits it? It darkens. So if anyone wants to choose a color, I made up a color stick of a variety of Japanese silk wraps.
Ooh.
Choose from this, not from the raw thread. We're going to varnish that blank that we've just sanded the string off, and I'm going to use a good exterior marine spar gloss. And I want just enough to fill a small cup on my varnishing rack. I'm going to take a finger off a rubber glove,
Okay.
and in the very end of it, I'm going to cut a tiny little hole, just big enough so the tip of that rod section can pass through it.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but you're going to show me, right?
You'll see it in just a second.
Okay.
That ought to work. Now, I'm going to put that over the end of my varnishing cup, like that. Center it up reasonably well. Take my cleaned off rod section and start it up through there and clip it at the top.
Is this your invention?
It is, yeah. Just a
Wow.
motor drive, belt driven, pulley system, and it pulls this cup of varnish. The rod section stays stationary. You'll see it. Let's get it started. Now I just want to fill this up so it comes to the top of the rod. It doesn't have to be the very top, but at least where the tip top would go. And I start the motor. And there it goes. Runs a little over 3 inches a minute, and it does a perfect varnishing job. And this is a pretty good system. A lot of rod builders use tubes, and they dip the rod section in it. Well, that poses problems. If you have a 3.5, say, or 4-foot rod section, that means you have to have 8 feet of clearance. Plus, you're pouring a lot of expensive varnish into a tube. Here I use a couple teaspoons, throw it away when I'm done.
And it's even.
It comes out real nice.
Okay, Bill, now this is the details part, right? This is
Right.
where you turn it into a rod.
This is where all the hardware goes on, and you make a fishing rod out of it.
Okay. Well, I guess let's start at the tip here.
Sure,
huh?
good place.
Okay. Tell me, what is this and how did it get on there?
It's called a tip top or the tip guide,
Okay.
and it just fits over the end. The end has to be turned a little bit for the right sizing.
Okay, let's show the piece from the table.
Right, and you could use either light or dark,
Okay.
depending on the preference of the customer.
Right.
Little silk wrapping goes on here, and I've mixed 2 colors, and you might note the only way to tell these 2 tips apart is by the number of trim wraps.
And then what about this piece right here?
Periodically down the length of the rod, in order to distribute the stress of the line, we want to place snake guides.
Okay.
And they look typically like this. And you want to space them wider and wider and wider apart till you
Right,
get to the
right.
end of the tip.
And this is a ferrule?
Right. The way to get
Okay.
2-piece rods together to make a fishing rod is you have to have some mechanical connector. And the ferrules serve that purpose. I use nickel silver, and the other tip that we varnished will take this ferrule,
Okay.
and I'll work the ends down just a little bit into a point to get a little better transition of flexibility at that point. Then I'll darken that, chemically darken this part of it, not where it makes contact with the male ferrule, but just on the shoulder, wrap it with thread, put a little trim wrap on it, and varnish it. Here's the butt section to that rod.
Okay.
Again, we'll pick it up from the ferrule. This is the mating connector to put the 2 rods together. Again, the wraps, trim wrap, another snake guide, what's called a stripping guide. That's your first guide off the reel that the line touches.
Okay.
Wrapped again with the same scheme. And a little room for India ink personal markings.
Little autograph there.
I always put my name on it, and the customer might want his name on it. There's a hook keeper, a handy place to hook the fly when you're walking through the woods or down the trail to the stream. To make a cork grip, I'll start with cork rings. Glue them together and press them on a cork press. When it's dry, I have a handle blank
Okay.
that I'll turn on the lathe into a fly rod handle.
Now, does it have any special treatment so it's okay with the water or
Just
maybe
bare
with the
cork is the best thing you
hands?
could do.
Okay.
And they get dirty after a while with a few fish.
And what about this? This is beautiful here.
Thank you. Finally, we have to have some way to hold the reel onto the rod. This was a piece of burl wood I cut off a tree, and I routed out a slot to give the reel foot a little more stability. This is a simple down-locking ring and darkened nickel silver. And for this is my personal rod, and I had a little time to do a little inlay work on that.
Well, it is beautiful. Good job. Well, Bill, you make it look so simple. Is it really that easy?
Well, the rod does most of the work.
Yeah, well, what are some simple steps or things that you can tell us that would help us out?
Just a matter of timing. Accelerate the line,
Yeah.
wait till it straightens out, and bring it forward. Give it a try.
All right. Here we go. Okay. Back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, back. And here we go.
Needs a little work, but
Needs a lot of work. What are you talking about?
little practice, you'll have it.
Well, I'm going to work on this and we're going to close the show. Bill, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for stopping over.
Well, not a problem. We hope you've enjoyed everything there is to know about bamboo fly rods. And thank you for watching Expressions. We'll see you next week. You can leave and watch me practice this, I guess, huh? Okay, back.
Back, let it straighten out.
All right, we there?
Forward.
Woo!
It'll get there.
It just lobs, you know,
just
it's
have
not
to
it's like a
practice.
bad pitch or something.
Anyone can do it. It just takes a little
Yeah,
practice.
anyone can do it. I've heard that. Woo! Hey, that was better.
Getting better.
All right.